The wonderful Linda Lovein. I do just want to take a minute to talk about how wonderful this legacy is for her. It's such a beautiful role for her. Maybe you each could talk about a little highlight of working with Linda before we get going. Nathan, would you mind starting us off?
No. Well, she was extraordinary, as we all know. Certainly a beloved figure in the theater, which is where I really got to know her. I know we all remember her fondly from Alice, but she was someone I knew just as a fan and just to say hello to, and we would always say to one another, I really hope we get to work together someday. So this was just a very special experience and very emotional, and she was just an incredible person as well as being a great actress, and incredibly kind and gracious and loving, and it was I think a very, very happy experience for her, and as it certainly was for all of us.
I do want to talk about Bunny and her relationship. I just think that is really the kicking off point. Bunny is sort of leading the camaraderie of the group in a way. Can you, Nathan, speak to why this particular role, this show really spoke to you?
Well, I got a call from Ryan Murphy, who said he was going to do this and that it was written by the men who created Will and Grace, Max Muchnick and David Cohan, and that Jimmy Burrows, the legendary Jimmy Burrows, would be directing. So that sounded like a good group to work with, and then I read the script and I thought it was extremely funny and moving. As far as that relationship, I think his mother, who he sort of rescued after her husband had died, and he brought her to live with him in Palm Springs, and then she worked at a local store, one of this huge franchise. He has a bra empire, so that was really the closest relationship in his life, and then he has this chosen family of three friends, and one of them, George, has passed away, and after a night of reminiscing with Jerry and Arthur, played by my friends, hi fellas.
Hi,
Nathan. He very impulsively says, why can't this be the rest of our lives? And move in with me. I think he's a very lonely character, and I think this is very meaningful for him, especially as he's someone who's getting older, and the notion of having that great romantic relationship in his life is that ship has kind of sailed. But these two gentlemen are incredibly important to him.
Matt, let's talk about Jerry for a sec too, because you guys, all of your characters are so unique and so funny and so special. I love how Jerry just wears his heart on his sleeve. He's sweet and he's like deeply emotional and empathetic. Can you talk about getting into playing this sweet comedic guy?
Yeah, sure. First of all, thank you everybody for being here today. I appreciate it. Antonia, thank you for doing this. I think he has this sort of arrested development from his childhood, growing up in the Mormon church, where family was everything to him, and I think he still has that sense of enthusiasm and joy and positivity about everything, even if it means he kind of skirts over some of the facts at times or misses things that go over his head. But yeah, to me, that was so integral to what the show is about, which is found family, and it made all the sense in the world to me that somebody who spent his entire childhood wanting to celebrate family, and then being removed from that so drastically to then make all the sense for him to want to cohabitate with the two people he loves the most in the world. So I love his sense of positivity, having spent the past decade playing repressed and traumatized characters. It was so appealing to me to get to go to work and try to embrace an open heart and positivity. But I do think he's someone who, has also experienced a great deal of pain in his life. And that's why his emotions do sometimes bubble to the surface. If he looks under the hood too much, he can fall apart pretty quickly. So there were a lot of fun dynamics at play, and obviously working with these gentlemen, and I'd worked with Max and David and Jimmy on Will and Grace, and Mr. Murphy on several productions, so it just seemed like a really great environment to walk into, particularly in 2025.
We need plenty of comedy in our lives right now. Nathan Lee, Arthur is just the king of the zinger. He just drops these truth bombs. And you're just like the foil to the rest of the chaos, and I absolutely love that. And how much fun was this? And tell me about kind of embracing the zinginess of it all.
Thank you very much for saying that, and it's a pleasure to see you all this afternoon. I like to think of Arthur being joyfully irritated all the time. But he means it in a loving way, of course. Everything is coming from a place of love. He wants the world to look good because it might just make you feel better inside. When you put on a happy face, when you put on a lovely chemise or a lovely gown or a lovely pair of trousers. So I think that he really wants that. He wants the world to feel better about themselves. And so that's one of the things I really love about Arthur, is that he really is interested in everyone being their best selves, their most authentic self, and he wants to help you find that. I wish I was as direct as Arthur is in real life. I'm a little bit more Switzerland myself, a little bit more diplomatic. And Arthur also has a lot more sex than I've ever had. So I'd like to explore that too. Perhaps.
Maybe.
Maybe.
And I was wondering if having a background in theatre also kind of feeds into this, because it just feels quite like theatre, doesn't it? I don't know if all of you can speak to that.
Absolutely. I think all of us can speak to that because that's one of the reasons our chemistry is so good, I think. One of the many reasons is that we all have these theater backgrounds, and so in the theater you have to come together very quickly to make something happen. You have to come in, uncross your arms, and be very vulnerable immediately. And it was so easy to do with this group because, quite frankly, I'm a fan of everyone's work. And when you're a fan of everyone's work, including Mr. Barrows, Max and David, and the Ryan Murphy, it just was, it was like, how can I bring my A game and show up to be with these wonderful people and play ball,
Look with these two gentlemen. These are two of the most iconic comedic actors we have. It was so fun to go to work and watch and learn. And Linda as well led us all with such a gentle and beautiful grace and taught by example. And talk about somebody who's a genius in this medium. And then
Absolutely.
to have these brilliant writers and Jimmy Burrows guiding us. I do think it was helpful that we all came from the theater, but I had as much fun watching my cast members as I had playing the role myself.
What about you, Nathan, bringing your theatrical experience to a show like this?
Well, it's so much really more of a writer's process. I know everybody calls it a hybrid of theater and film, but it's not really until the audience is there that it feels a little like theater. We are performing this little 25-minute play for people, and but it's always being rewritten, evolving, and changing up until the very last take. So it's nerve-wracking and thrilling at the same time. But it really, that's the most exciting part of it is that tape night and doing it for people and hearing them roar with laughter. So it's, I think that the fact that we've all come from the theater there was an immediate kinship and then chemistry is just something you can't predict, and we just lucked out that we all fell in love with one another.
We did. We only did one take. I think that's worth noting, which is
Yes.
Burroughs. We only ever did one take, and so, at best, you'd had your lines for 72 hours, and then we changed some of the lines.